How can socially conscious people like us? How can we redirect the wealth and power of big banks, traditional corporations, and the super rich to us average citizens without using politicians or regulations? This is the question we ask on the Crowd Effect podcast. I am your host, Paul Lovejoy, activist investment advisor at Stakeholder Enterprise. What is an economy? Well, if we take a step back and look at humankind's very first economy, it was called a foraging economy. When we take a look at it from this perspective, it's easy to see that at its core, an economy is how humans survive. It's our system of survival. Now, the tools that we used in a foraging economy were things like atlatls and spears for hunting and satchels and containers for gathering. Now, the tool that we use in our modern economy is money. Now, it took me a very long time to really grasp this concept that money is, in fact, just a tool. We all have these beliefs that are centered around money, and it's oftentimes we learn these beliefs honestly through childhood. Now, my very first belief about money that I can remember from childhood was that money could bring you happiness. So, growing up, my parents were not financially successful. We didn't have a lot of money. In fact, when I was 5 years old, we were homeless. We went from campsite to campsite every few weeks for 6 months. And although I didn't really realize it at the time that we were homeless, I can look back on that now and see that it was we were financially struggling. There was even I do even have a memory of sleeping in our car on the side of the road one night, which was unpleasant. There's no way around that. However, I had a grandmother, my mother's mom, who had money, lived in a really nice house in the Hollywood Hills. It was like a museum in that house. She had nice things, art, furniture. It was a totally different perspective. And every time I would go there, she would have, new stuff for me, take us out to nice restaurants, buy us toys and clothes. And so at a young age, I saw that having money meant happiness because as a kid, that's what it did for me. I was when I go to my grandmother's house, I would get good stuff and I would be happy. However, my grandmother always had strings attached to her money, and so that was also a belief as well, that if you have money, then you can hold power over others. And this seems to be the case in our modern economy. Um, however, back to money. Growing up, then I kind of had this uh, disorder that Dr. Brad Klontz, who is a financial psychologist, calls money worship. So I had this disorder of money worshiping, thinking that money uh, would buy me happiness. Money would make me happiness, and so I after I graduated college, I started a real estate investment company with my brothers and my mother, and became pretty successful pretty quickly. I started it in 2002, and by 2007, we had a small fortune, millions, a couple million, not a lot, but it was a nice chunk of change. And then in 2008, the global financial crisis hit, and I pretty much lost all of it. And then I kind of had a 180-degree turn on my view of money. I saw that money was now the cause of me being unhappy, and that I was foolish to go ahead and chase money, because all it brought me was despair, shame, humiliation, all these feelings that I felt when I lost the money in 2008. So, um, I thought this about money, and Dr. Brad Klontz calls this money avoidance, when we um, have kind of a hate of money, or uh, think things like money is the root of all evil and money doesn't grow on trees. This is a money avoidance disorder. So I thought that for maybe 3 years following the global financial crisis. But after 3 years, I was still unhappy. I wasn't making much money. I went from being a real estate investor to a high school water polo coach, which doesn't make a lot of money. And I didn't find myself happy. I enjoyed coaching, it had nothing to do with that. But um, I realized that, okay, so, money, thinking money that buys happiness, that's not real. That's not a real belief. And money will make me unhappy. That also, I found that wasn't a real belief. So I started to work on my beliefs centered around money. And that's when I really started to understand that money is simply a tool, and it really isn't anything that I need to be emotional around. Imagine, a hunter gatherer. Um, being afraid of their container, or trying to avoid their spear, or worshiping their satchel or their atlatl, thinking that that tool is going to make you happy. Now, the tool is worthless unless you know how to use it. So having this understanding and changing my beliefs around money was really the first step in gaining a better sense of my own financial literacy. Now, I understood finance. I went to school for business. I took financing course. I understood assets and liabilities. I could read income statements and balance sheets, and all of these other things that are important when it comes to not just finance, but your own personal finance. Um, but not really having false beliefs, that it made all of that knowledge irrelevant. So the very first step in really becoming a true financially literate individual is changing your false beliefs around money that are really hurtful for you into beliefs that are helpful for you. So a helpful belief that I have developed is that um, having a good financial health is an act of self care, just like getting enough sleep, exercising, eating healthy. These are things that make us, um, a better person, taking good care of ourselves, having proper hygiene, and having good personal finance, healthy personal finance is no different. This is an act of self care, and this is a very helpful belief for anyone to have. So before we can fix our broken financial system, we need to first reform our own personal financial system. My name is Paul Lovejoy. I am a crowd investor, and I see you are one too.